You already know, you've always known, yet you hesitate, you wait for the perfect moment, you wait for more motivation, you wait for a sign, but here's the truth. The sign was given to you the day you were born. The question is not whether you know what to do. The question is why you still don't do it. You already know, you've always known, yet you hesitate, you wait for the perfect moment, you wait for more motivation. You wait for a sign, but here's the truth. The sign was given to you the day you were born. The question is not whether you know what to do. The question is why you still don't do it. There is a space that exists in every human life, a space between what we know and what we do. It's not visible to the eye, but you can feel it. It's a quiet tension that lives inside your chest every time you tell yourself, I should, yet find yourself saying, I will, later. It's the place where intentions sit without ever turning into results. This gap is where potential slowly fades into regret, and it is not because you lack intelligence, guidance, or understanding. The truth is, you already know the steps. You know the habits that would improve your life, the conversations that would heal relationships, the decisions that would move you forward. The missing piece isn't knowledge, it's the movement from knowing into doing. This gap is deceptively dangerous because it feels harmless in the moment. You tell yourself that not acting today doesn't matter because you can act tomorrow. You delay the workout, telling yourself your health will still be there next week. You postpone starting your project, believing you'll have more energy later. But time has its own rules. Days turn to weeks, weeks into months, and without realizing it, the gap between what you know and what you do becomes a canyon. The longer you stay in this gap, the harder it is to climb out. Knowledge without action turns into a kind of weight that presses on you every day, not the weight of ignorance, but the weight of unrealized potential. It's important to understand that knowing is the easy part. We are living in an age where information is everywhere. You can learn a new skill with a free video, discover the steps to fitness in a single search, or find out how to start a business with just a few clicks. Yet this access has not made us masters of action. In fact, it has done the opposite for many. We've become collectors of knowledge, hoarders of advice, gatherers of methods. Yet we store it away like rare coins in a box, never using them to buy the life we want. The more knowledge we gather without acting, the more our minds trick us into thinking we've already made progress, but we haven't moved at all. When you understand this, you see why so many people live years knowing what to do yet never experiencing the results. They keep waiting for the perfect time, imagining that one day the stars will align, the doubts will vanish, and the path will be smooth. That day never comes. Waiting for perfect conditions is like waiting for the wind to blow in every direction at once. It's impossible. Action does not happen when conditions are perfect. Action is what creates better conditions. This is the first truth of the knowledge-action gap. The gap doesn't close on its own. You close it with imperfect, sometimes clumsy, but persistent action. And here is the paradox. The more we know, the more excuses we can create. Knowledge gives us the language to explain our delays. We tell ourselves, I'm not ready yet, or I need to prepare more, or it's not the right time. These sound intelligent, but they are disguised forms of fear. Knowledge can give us the comfort of feeling smart while keeping us in the same place. In this way, knowledge can become a prison instead of a key unless you act. This is why people can spend years studying nutrition yet remain unhealthy, or read countless books on business yet never start one. It's not that they don't know how, it's that they haven't crossed the bridge from learning to doing. You see, the human mind is very good at protecting you from discomfort. Doing something new often feels uncertain, sometimes even scary. Your brain will naturally choose the safer option, thinking about it instead of doing it. Thinking is predictable, thinking is safe, but doing means facing the possibility of failure, embarrassment, or rejection. This is why the gap exists, not because people lack the will to succeed, but because their natural instinct is to avoid discomfort. Understanding this is powerful because it shifts the question from "why don't I do it?" to "how can I act even when I don't feel like it?" The gap also exists because action demands commitment, while knowledge demands only awareness. Awareness is passive, you can carry it in your mind without it costing you much. Commitment, on the other hand, is active. It requires energy, sacrifice, and sometimes letting go of comfort. When you commit to action, you leave behind the safe space of thinking and step into the unpredictable world of results. And here's where the truth hits. Results are the only proof that you have truly learned something. Without action, all the knowledge in the world is just a story you tell yourself. There's another thing people rarely admit. Sometimes we stay in the gap because it feels good to keep imagining what life could be. As long as you haven't started, the dream remains perfect in your mind. But the moment you act, the dream meets reality, and reality is messy. It's not as perfect as the version in your head. This is why action is so powerful. It replaces fantasy with something real. It may not be perfect, but it's yours. And once something becomes real, you can shape it, improve it, and grow it. That is how the gap begins to close. Finally, the knowledge-action gap is not something you close once and forget about. It's a constant challenge appearing in different areas of your life. You may close the gap in your health, but still have one in your relationships. You may close it in your work, but still have one in your personal growth. The key is to recognize it quickly, to see when you're slipping into the comfort of knowing without doing, and to take action before the gap becomes wide again. Awareness is the first step, but action is the only step that matters. We often forget that the mind and the body live in two very different worlds. The mind lives in a world of imagination, memory, and thought. It can create scenarios, plan ahead, and replay the past without moving a single muscle. The body, on the other hand, lives in the real world. It operates in the space where friction, resistance, and effort are unavoidable. Knowing something is an activity of the mind, smooth, clean, and free of risk. Doing something is an activity of the body, messy, unpredictable, and sometimes uncomfortable. This is why it's so easy to know the right thing and yet avoid doing it. Thinking costs you almost nothing. Action demands energy. The mind can run laps around possibility without ever breaking a sweat. You can visualize yourself running a marathon, building a business, or playing a musical instrument. You can imagine the applause, the success, the transformation. But the body knows none of this until you put it to work. You may know the exact mechanics of how to do a push-up, but your muscles will only grow when your chest actually lowers to the ground and pushes back up again. You may understand the structure of a perfect speech, but your voice will only find its strength when you stand in front of people and speak. Knowledge in the mind is potential. Action through the body is proof. This is why so many people live in the safe space of thinking. In your head, there are no awkward moments, no wrong turns, no visible failures. You can rehearse life without living it. But the problem is that life only rewards action, not rehearsal. You can plan your way to perfection in thought, but perfection in reality only comes from practice. The person who stumbles forward will always outrun the person who stands still imagining flawless steps. The transition from knowing to doing often feels like crossing an invisible barrier. That barrier is resistance, the natural pushback you feel when moving from thought into effort. The body resists because it's designed to conserve energy. The mind resists because it fears uncertainty. When both work together to keep you still, the temptation to remain in the comfort of knowing becomes overwhelming. But comfort is not the birthplace of growth. The mind may whisper, "You can always start tomorrow." The body may echo, "We're fine as we are." Yet every day you stay in this agreement, your potential stays trapped in the mental world, never touching the physical one. There's a reason so many ancient practices, from martial arts to meditation, focus on uniting the mind and body. When the two work together, knowing and doing become one motion. A martial artist doesn't stop to think through every movement while defending themselves. Their body responds instantly because the mind has trained it through repeated action. A musician doesn't analyze every note during a performance. Their fingers move because the body remembers what the mind once studied. This is the bridge you must build, moving from understanding to embodiment. One way to bridge the gap is to start treating action as part of learning, not separate from it. We often believe the formula is, learn first, then act. But in reality, the deeper learning only begins when you act. Your body teaches your mind in ways your mind cannot teach itself. You can study swimming for years, memorizing every stroke and breathing technique. But the first time you step into the water, you'll realize how much your body needs to learn. Action brings a new kind of knowledge, the knowledge of experience. Another truth is that the body holds its own wisdom, but you can only access it through use. Runners talk about finding their stride, not by reading about running, but by running enough miles to feel it. Artists talk about flow, not by imagining creativity, but by moving their hands across paper or canvas until the motion becomes natural. The mind opens the door, but the body walks through it. Without the body, the mind's ideas stay trapped behind that door forever. When you understand that knowing is mental and doing is physical, you see why so many people get stuck in endless preparation. They keep feeding the mind, believing it will somehow carry them to success without the body's participation. But thought without action is like a seed kept in a jar full of life, yet never planted. It will never grow until it touches the soil, feels the rain, and faces the sun. The body is that soil. It is the place where all mental seeds must be planted if they are to become something real. Motivation is a spark. It flares up when you watch an inspiring video, hear a powerful story, or imagine a better future for yourself. In those moments, you feel unstoppable. You're ready to run, to work, to change your life. But like all sparks, motivation burns out quickly if it's not fed. It's an emotion, not a habit. It comes and goes without asking your permission. Some mornings you'll wake up feeling ready. Other mornings you'll wake up feeling empty. If you depend only on motivation, your actions will always be unstable, strong one day, absent the next. This is why discipline matters more than motivation. Motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a choice. Discipline is the quiet force that keeps you moving when your feelings don't want to cooperate. It doesn't ask, do I feel like it today? It simply says, it's time. Where motivation waits for the right mood, discipline builds the right mood through action. The runner who trains every morning is not always motivated. They simply follow the discipline they've built. The student who studies every day is not always inspired. They've created a routine that carries them through uninspired moments. Motivation pushes you forward on good days, but discipline carries you through bad days, and life will always give you both. One of the traps of modern self-improvement is the belief that you must feel ready before you act. People search for the perfect playlist, the perfect book, the perfect role model to ignite them, but this turns the pursuit of growth into a chase for constant emotional highs. The truth is, the most important work you'll ever do will often feel inconvenient, uncomfortable, and ordinary. Discipline is what allows you to show up anyway, and showing up again and again is what creates results. Think of discipline as a muscle. It grows only when you use it. The first time you push yourself to act without motivation, it feels heavy, almost unnatural. But every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen it. Eventually, acting without motivation becomes normal. You stop waiting for the perfect feeling, and start relying on the rhythm you've built. And that rhythm will carry you much farther than bursts of enthusiasm ever could. Motivation can start the race. Discipline is what crosses the finish line. Discipline also frees you from the exhausting cycle of starting over. Without discipline, you fall into a pattern of doing something when you feel inspired, stopping when you don't, then starting all over again weeks or months later. Each time, you lose momentum and have to rebuild from the ground up. But when discipline is present, the progress never fully stops. Even on bad days, you still move, maybe slower, maybe smaller, but you move. This consistent movement keeps you connected to your goals, and that connection builds trust in yourself. You begin to believe your own promises. It's important to understand that discipline is not the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. You can still feel lazy, tired, or unmotivated, but discipline teaches you that feelings are not commands. You can feel resistance and still move forward. You can feel fear and still take the next step. This is the power of discipline. It places action above emotion without denying that emotion exists. It tells your body, we're going anyway. Some people think discipline means living without joy, as if it's a punishment. But true discipline is the opposite. It's a form of freedom. It frees you from the control of shifting moods. It frees you from regret, because you've done what needed to be done. It frees you from the chaos of inconsistency, because you have a structure that holds you up. When you have discipline, you don't need to wait for the world to align perfectly before you move. You carry your own momentum with you. In the end, motivation is a visitor. It comes and goes when it pleases. Discipline is a resident. It lives with you, shapes your days, and stays through every season. If you want to close the gap between knowing and doing, you can't rely on fleeting feelings. You must build the habit of action, even when the feeling isn't there. Because in the moments when your mind says, not today, discipline answers, yes, today. And that answer changes everything. When people think about change, they often imagine big leaps, the dramatic transformation, the overnight success, the life-changing decision. But in reality, lasting change is rarely born from a single massive action. It's built brick by brick through small, repeated steps that seem almost too simple to matter. The most powerful changes in your life won't come from what you do once in a while. They will come from what you do every day without fail. These small actions may not impress anyone at first, but over time, they become the foundation on which all great achievements are built. The mind often resists this truth because small actions feel too slow. You want results now. You want to see change as quickly as you can imagine it. But the speed of thought is not the speed of reality. In reality, growth moves quietly, almost invisibly, until one day it becomes undeniable. Like a tree that grows so gradually you can't see it happening, yet years later, it towers above you. Every day it absorbed sunlight, took in water, and reached a little further upward. Your habits work the same way. Even if each action feels insignificant in the moment, it is shaping you over time in ways you cannot yet measure. The beauty of small daily actions is that they're easier to start and harder to quit. Writing a single page each day may not sound like much, but over a year, it becomes a book. Saving a small amount of money each week might feel like it won't make a difference, but over years, it becomes freedom. Doing just a few minutes of exercise daily might feel too light to matter, yet over time, it transforms your health. These actions are humble, but they have a secret weapon: consistency. Consistency is what turns drops into oceans and seeds into forests. Small actions also bypass one of the biggest barriers to change: resistance. When you imagine a huge task, the weight of it can overwhelm you before you even start. But when you focus on something small, resistance has less power over you. It's easier to convince yourself to do 5 minutes of work than an hour. Once you begin, momentum takes over. What started as a small step can grow into a larger stride without you forcing it. This is the quiet magic of starting small. It gets you moving when the mind would rather stay still. There's another reason small daily actions are so powerful. They create identity. Every time you do something, no matter how small, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. If you write every day, even for 10 minutes, you're proving to yourself that you are a writer. If you exercise daily, even lightly, you're proving to yourself that you are someone who takes care of their health. These small actions are not just building results, they're building the self-image that will sustain those results. Small actions also have a compounding effect. Just as interest grows faster over time when you keep investing, your actions grow stronger when you keep repeating them. The first time you practice a skill, it might feel awkward. The 10th time, it feels easier. The 100th time, it feels natural. The 1,000th time, it feels like second nature. At that point, you no longer think about whether you should do it, you just do it, because it has become a part of who you are. It's important to remember that small daily actions work both ways. Positive habits build you up over time, but negative habits also shape you just in the wrong direction. Missing one day may not hurt you, but missing many days will. Ignoring your health, avoiding responsibility, delaying decisions, these also add up, slowly but surely. Life is always moving in a direction, and your daily actions decide which way it goes. The power of small daily actions lies in their invisibility. You won't notice the change at first. Others might not notice it either, but one day you'll look back and realize how far you've come, not because of one big moment, but because you kept showing up when it didn't seem to matter. The truth is, it always mattered. Every page you wrote, every step you walked, every choice you made, they were the quiet builders of your future. And when the future arrives, it will reflect the small things you chose to do every single day. Many people wait for the perfect moment to begin. They wait to feel fully prepared, fully confident, fully equipped with all the answers. But here's the truth most don't realize until much later. Readiness is not something you find before action, it is something you create through action. If you stand still, waiting for certainty, you will never move. The only way to be ready for what lies ahead is to begin moving toward it, even if you feel unprepared. Think about how you learned anything valuable in your life. You didn't become ready before you tried, you became ready because you tried. A child doesn't wait until they know exactly how to walk before taking their first step. They stumble, they fall, they adjust. Each step, whether graceful or awkward, teaches their body what readiness feels like. In the same way, every skill you've ever mastered, from riding a bike to speaking in public, came from acting before you felt fully capable. Waiting until you feel ready is like waiting for a fire to start before you gather wood. The mind resists this truth because it prefers safety. It says, let's gather more information. Let's think this through one more time. Let's make sure we have everything perfect before we start. While caution has its place, perfectionism often disguises itself as preparation. You feel productive because you're learning, researching, and planning, but deep down, you know you're avoiding the discomfort of starting. The danger is that the longer you wait, the more fear grows, and the further readiness slips away. Action has a way of dissolving fear that thought never can. Fear thrives in the unknown, but action shrinks the unknown into something real and tangible. When you finally start, the thing you feared often turns out to be far smaller and more manageable than you imagined. You realize most of the obstacles were only shadows in your mind. By moving forward, you give yourself new information that no amount of thinking could have provided. This information becomes your preparation. Every step you take arms you with the knowledge and confidence to take the next one. Action also builds momentum, and momentum creates its own form of readiness. The first day you go to the gym, you may feel lost among the machines. By the 10th day, you know exactly where to go and what to do. The first time you speak in a meeting, your voice may shake. By the 10th time, you speak without even thinking about it. Readiness is not an instant transformation. It is the gradual comfort that grows from repeated exposure. Each repetition carves readiness deeper into your mind and body until it becomes second nature. The beauty of this truth is that it removes the need for perfect beginnings. You no longer have to wait for the stars to align or for every question to be answered. You only need to take one step. That step might be clumsy. It might be small, but it will lead you to the second step, and the second will lead to the third. Before long, you'll find yourself doing things you once thought were impossible, not because you were ready from the start, but because you became ready along the way. This is why action often surprises you with its power. You start a conversation and opportunities appear. You send one application and doors begin to open. You try a new skill and connections form that you couldn't have predicted. Readiness, it turns out, is less about having everything in place beforehand and more about trusting yourself to adapt as you go. You are far more capable than you think, but you will never know it while standing still. The lesson is simple but difficult to accept. Don't wait to be ready. Start, and readiness will follow. Every movement forward gives you the strength, skill, and clarity you thought you needed before you could begin. Readiness is not the starting line, it's the result of running the race. Inaction has a strange gravity to it. The longer you stay still, the heavier the weight becomes. What begins as a single day of delay turns into a week, then a month, then a season of life where you carry the constant awareness of what you could have done but didn't. This is the cycle of inaction, and once it tightens around you, it can feel impossible to escape. It feeds on hesitation, on overthinking, and on the false comfort of waiting for a better time. The first step to breaking this cycle is to recognize that it will never end on its own. It must be broken deliberately by choice. The danger of inaction is not just the loss of progress, it's the erosion of self-trust. Every time you promise yourself you'll start tomorrow but don't, you teach yourself quietly, without words, that your own word is not reliable. Over time, this erodes confidence and builds a silent belief that you are someone who does not follow through. That belief becomes a cage. Even when you want to move, you doubt your ability to keep going, and so you stay still. Breaking the cycle means rebuilding trust in yourself through action, no matter how small. Inaction thrives in the mind because it disguises itself as thinking. You might tell yourself you're planning or preparing, when in reality you're postponing. The more time you spend in your head, the more the imagined difficulties grow, until the idea of starting feels overwhelming. The truth is, you can only think your way so far. At some point, you must act. Action is the antidote to overthinking. It grounds you in the real world, where problems can be solved and progress can be measured. One of the most effective ways to break inaction is to lower the barrier to starting. Instead of telling yourself you have to run 5 kilometers, tell yourself you only need to put on your shoes and step outside. Instead of deciding to write an entire chapter, decide to write a single sentence. These micro-commitments trick the mind into moving, and once you're moving, the weight of inaction begins to lift. Momentum does not come from waiting for energy, it comes from creating it through motion. Another powerful tool is to focus on immediate action rather than perfect action. The desire to do it right on the first try is one of the strongest traps of inaction. Perfectionism convinces you that anything less than flawless execution is failure, so you never start. But imperfection is the only path to mastery. By accepting that your first step will be messy, awkward, or incomplete, you free yourself to take it. Once you begin, improvement follows naturally. It's also important to change the environment that supports your inaction. If your surroundings, routines, or associations constantly encourage passivity, breaking the cycle will be far harder. Small shifts, clearing clutter from your workspace, setting visible reminders, surrounding yourself with people who take action can have an outsized effect on your willingness to move. Your environment either fuels motion or feeds stillness. Choose carefully. Breaking the cycle of inaction is not a single event, it's a continual process. Even after you start, the temptation to slow down, to pause just for a while, will return. The difference is that now you know the cost of staying still. You've felt the weight, you've seen how it grows, and you've chosen to step out of it. Each time you take action instead of delaying, you weaken inaction's grip. Over time, action becomes your default response instead of hesitation. When you finally step out of the cycle, you see that the hardest part was not the work itself, it was the starting. The effort you feared so much was never as heavy as the fear of beginning. Once you break the stillness, even with the smallest of steps, you discover that motion has its own energy, its own reward, and from there, the only way is forward. There is a difference between someone who occasionally takes action and someone for whom action is a natural way of being. The first group relies on bursts of motivation, sudden waves of inspiration, or external pressure to move. The second group moves because that is simply who they are. Their decisions are not based on waiting for the perfect moment. They are guided by a deep-rooted habit of doing. If you want to change your life in any lasting way, you must move from being someone who sometimes acts to someone who is an actor by nature. Becoming a person who acts begins with self-image. You must start to see yourself not as someone who is trying to become disciplined, but as someone who already is. This shift is not about lying to yourself. It's about deciding which version of you will lead your life. When you identify as a person who takes action, every choice becomes a reflection of that identity. You stop asking, "Should I do this?" and start thinking, "I'm the kind of person who does this." This identity is strengthened every time you follow through, no matter how small the act. One of the hallmarks of people who act is that they value momentum over perfection. They understand that doing something imperfectly is far more valuable than endlessly planning the perfect move. Perfection is a mirage. It keeps you walking toward it without ever arriving. Action-oriented people accept that mistakes are part of the process, and they trust themselves to adapt and improve along the way. This trust is what frees them to move quickly and consistently. Another key element is emotional neutrality toward action. People who wait to feel motivated before they start are trapped in a cycle of emotional dependency. Those who act by default have learned that emotions are not reliable guides for commitment. They may feel tired, uninspired, or hesitant, but they act anyway. Over time, this habit of moving regardless of mood becomes automatic. The act of starting creates the energy they once thought they needed in order to begin. Becoming this kind of person also requires building systems instead of relying on willpower. Willpower is like a muscle. It tires quickly when overused. Systems, on the other hand, make action automatic. For example, setting a fixed time each day for a certain task removes the daily debate about when or whether to do it. Preparing your environment the night before eliminates friction in the morning. These structures protect you from your own moments of weakness and keep you moving even when your mind wants to stall. People who act also keep their focus on the next step, not the entire journey. Looking too far ahead can create overwhelm, making action feel impossible. But focusing on the single, immediate move right in front of you keeps the task manageable. You don't have to lift the entire weight of the future, only the weight of the present moment. Each completed step builds confidence for the next one, and in this way, Large achievements grow from a series of small, intentional actions. An often overlooked part of becoming a person who acts is learning to close loops. Many people begin projects but leave them half-finished, creating a trail of incomplete work that clutters both their environment and their mind. Those who act consistently take pride in finishing what they start. Completion becomes a habit as much as starting is, and with every loop you close, you reinforce the belief that you are dependable to others, and more importantly, to yourself. Finally, to truly embody this identity, you must align action with purpose. People who act without direction can still be busy but unfulfilled. People who act with clarity of purpose channel their energy toward what matters most, ensuring that their movement builds the life they actually want to live. When your actions are aligned with your values and long-term vision, you not only move more often, you move in the right direction. And in that alignment, action stops being a chore and becomes a natural expression of who you are. In the end, the distance between the life you have and the life you want is measured in actions, not intentions. Knowing will never be enough, planning will never be enough, hoping will never be enough. What changes you is the step you take today, not tomorrow, not when the time is right, but now. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to have all the answers. You only need to move. Because with every action, you are shaping your future self, teaching them to trust, to adapt, to persist. One day, you will look back and see that the moments you acted, even in uncertainty, were the moments that defined you. And you will realize that readiness was never the starting point. It was the reward for daring to begin. So the question is not whether you know what to do. The question is whether you will take the step you already know you must.